LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the April 1st edition of Liberal Viewer Monday Media Mix-Up. Thanks for joining me. I'm sorry I got a little distracted by Cheech here, who also wanted to thank you all for joining us. We'll be using too much fluff. 12 best, most newsworthy clips I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows on the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media. I tried to do air quotes with Cheech there. Sorry. The so-called corporate media here in the United States for what should be a really informative, educational, fair use media criticism and political commentary show for you all today. Uh, as you can see, the main topic I chose from the coverage over the weekend was, how can someone like Trump lead a Christian nationalist Republican Party? And this has to do with like the rising influence of Christian nationalism on the Republican Party through Trumpism and the MAGA movement. But also, why is Donald Trump, like, who in his demeanor, his uh, life experience, his like actions throughout his life, like everything about him is not what I understand to be uh, a Christian centered life, but apparently he is their messiah, their warrior, and so much so that he is now selling Bibles, $60 Bibles, the God Bless the USA Bible. And that's actually, and it includes the Constitution, Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, Pledge of Allegiance. I think that's where they're like putting together the nationalist part and the Christian part. That's uh, partly where I got the idea for the title here. And this was actually sort of parodied, not the Christian nationalist part, but the Trump out there selling the Bible, and how ridiculous it is that he is the purveyor of Christianity, but that's what it is. And SNL, they have James Austin Johnson, who does a really good technical Trump impression that I will talk about after we watch the cold open from Saturday Night Live as my well, I have two political comedy clips for you, but I'm going to start with Saturday Night Live before I get to Fox News. So here's Saturday Night Live's first. Well, the whole video is down at a link in sources, under sources in the video description. This is the minute that I wanted to show you.
That's right, it's Easter, the time of year when I compare myself to Jesus Christ. That's just a thing I do now, and people seem to be okay with it. I'm going to keep doing it. And if you think that this is a bad look, imagine how weird it would be if I started selling Bibles. Well, I'm selling Bibles. Look at this beautiful Bible, made from 100% Bible. Sounds like a joke, and in many ways it is, but it's also very real. As you know, I love Bible. It's my favorite book. I've definitely read it. My favorite part is probably the ending, how it all wraps up. But this is a very special Bible, and it can be yours for the high, high price of $60. But I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this for the glory of God and for pandering and mostly for money.
I like that. That's actually more the writers than the impression, but the way they write their Trump parodies, that's like something Trump does, where he says it's not this, and then by the end of the sentence he says it is this, and that's why you end up with like the fine people hoax, where like part of the time over 3 days he did say that he condemned Nazis, but also other times he said that Nazis were the same as like anti-fascists, or as bad as anti-fascists, or anti-fascists were as bad as fascists. And anyway, I don't want, that's a whole tangent I don't want to go into, but I like that part of the parody. They didn't really go into the Christian nationalism part. They talked about the Bill of Rights and the Pledge of Allegiance being in there, but then they just like cut to a joke about how then we have to cut out other parts of the Bible. But that's actually the really disturbing part, that uh, the that the Republican nominee for president is out there selling a Bible that also includes the secular documents of the United States. You know, God is not mentioned in the Constitution, and in the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin actually got Thomas Jefferson to take out the word God and put in endowed by their creator of their, inalienable rights, because he wanted to keep God out of the Declaration of Independence. I mean, I guess it's in the Pledge of Allegiance, but it wasn't put in there till like the 50s to fight godless communism abroad by the Eisenhower administration. So, I mean, we're supposed to have separation of church and state, something that the Republican Speaker of the House doesn't really agree with, and apparently Donald Trump also doesn't agree with, and he's playing on that with this Christian nationalism. And then the flip side of this is that the right wing keeps trying to portray Joe Biden, an actual observant Catholic, as anti-Christian, like war on Christians. For many years, Fox News was doing the whole war on Christmas thing every Christmas. Well, they kind of turned that into a war on Easter thing over the weekend. There were two bogus stories that they kept playing. First, that the Trans Day of Visibility, which was declared by Obama in 2009 on March 31st, Trans Day of Awareness and Visibility. I think it's Visibility, Trans Day of Visibility. That's on March 31st, and this year Easter and Trans Day of Visibility were the same day, and the Biden administration declared both because they're, not. I mean, first of all, they're not even inconsistent. What's wrong with recognizing transgender people on Easter? Is that something Jesus would be against? I think you might want to read your Bible again, but I'm going to show you the way this was actually, not only they harped on it over and over again all weekend, all day today, the Transgender Day of Visibility thing. It was the top story on the first supposedly straight news program with supposedly straight news anchors Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino on America's Newsroom this morning. Well, they had a brief look at, Biden's border crisis. You'll see I think a screenshot from that. But it was only like 10 seconds long, and they covered it later because the first story was Biden attacks Easter and Trump is all outraged, and that's my second political comedy clip over here.
First, however, you got faith and partisanship colliding. The Biden White House marking Transgender Day of Visibility on Easter Sunday, which has set off a bit of a firestorm, you could say. Good morning, everybody. Easter Monday here in New York. I'm Bill Hemmer. Hope you had a blessed Easter weekend. Hello to you.
Good morning to you. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. This year, Trans Visibility Day coinciding with Easter. Of course, that is one of the holiest days on the Christian calendar. Before the ink was dry on Biden's proclamation, the Trump campaign piling on saying this: "We call on Joe Biden's failing campaign and White House to issue an apology to the millions of Catholics and Christians around America across America, who believe tomorrow is for one celebration only, the resurrection of Jesus Christ."
So meanwhile,
of course, they did not report on the total crazy stuff that Trump was posting on Truth Social all over Easter weekend, including one like Happy Easter to all the crooked judges and prosecutors and hateful liberals out there, his all cap rant type thing that should have been covered. That never made it onto Fox News today. And nowhere in any of the Fox News media did they talk about how on Good Friday, I put a link down in the video description to this Truth Social post where Trump actually posted a picture of Biden tied up, or a video of Biden tied up in the back of a pickup truck. Here, I actually, I have a little screenshot of it here. I don't know how well you can see the Biden tied up in the back of the pickup truck with the Blue Lives Matter. I don't know why Donald Trump posted that, but that'll come up in a couple of the clips I'm going to show you on this topic, which, like I said, covers both the rise of Christian nationalism and the way that Republicans are trying to blur the separation of church and state, but also why Donald Trump, with all of his misdeeds and unchristian behavior and, just violent rhetoric, including that picture I was just showing you, why of all people is he the leader of the Christian nationalist movement? But before I get to the newsmaker clips that cover all that, and by the way, down in the video description under media mention, you can see brief summaries of all the clips I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you the 5 news summaries from longest to shortest that didn't really cover my main topic. The longest one here is ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos news summary from Martha Raddatz, who briefly talks about the Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore. That was a big story that was covered on all the news programs and had newsmaker clips. But they also have Britt Clennett in Jerusalem on the growing rift between Biden administration and the Israeli government over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, which is an ongoing important story that I will talk about a little more possibly after we watch that longest news summary from yesterday together over here.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. This morning, some of the most powerful cranes in the country are working to clear the wreckage of the Francis Scott Key Bridge from the Port of Baltimore. Here's a look this morning at the efforts to remove the debris from the massive cargo ship that caused the bridge's collapse and the death of 6 construction workers. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen will join us to discuss the cleanup efforts and the long road to recovery ahead. But Senator Van Hollen, a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, is also making news for his direct, biting criticism of the Biden administration over its handling of Gaza, a conflict that is creating a humanitarian crisis and a diplomatic and political storm, which is dividing the Democratic Party. The challenge President Biden is facing was on full display this week during a star-studded New York City fundraiser featuring 3 Democratic presidents, but also a healthy contingent of protesters outside speaking out against the administration's response to the war. And despite diplomatic talks pushing Israel not to expand its military action to Rafah, the Biden administration has moved in recent weeks to fulfill long-standing agreements to ship more fighter jets and 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. ABC's Britt Clennett in Jerusalem starts us off.
A show of U.S. support for Israel, despite boiling tensions over its planned military offensive in southern Gaza. The Biden administration signing off on billions of dollars worth of weapons as part of a long-standing agreement. The Washington Post reporting that the new arms transfer include 2,000-pound bombs. Cracks in the U.S.-Israeli relationship have been showing recently. The U.S. this week refusing to veto a UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responding by calling off a visit to D.C. by a delegation to discuss Israel's planned ground invasion of Rafah, as Israel says they are disabling Hamas's capabilities and rescuing hostages. The meeting now being rescheduled. This as the humanitarian crisis grows worse by the day. Aid groups sounding the alarm. The UN warns famine is imminent and says it is Israel's legal responsibility to allow more aid in. UNICEF's James Elder speaking to us from Gaza.
There are other crossings that can be opened. We can open things up in the north. You can indeed flood the Gaza Strip.
As a convoy of aid ships set sail Saturday for Gaza, carrying 400 tons of food. Children forced onto the streets of Rafah, selling whatever they can. Janine offering up used pots and pans, telling us, our future is gone. We used to learn in school, now there is no school. Nima Ashur shows me the tent she lives in with her family at a makeshift camp in Rafah after evacuating from the north.
This is where we cook. We are suffering in getting the water, the food. Now they are celebrating when we have it.
To celebrate having basic necessities like food and water.
Her family among the 1.3 million displaced people who have evacuated from northern and central Gaza to seek safety in Gaza's southernmost city, only to be told they may have to leave again any day now.
You don't know when you are going to be attacked. Our neighbors has been killed. They were sleeping peacefully and they were killed. So each night we think we might be the next.
And in East Jerusalem, Israeli authorities threatening to deport some terminally ill patients back to Gaza when their treatment ends. Those deportations stopped by Israel's High Court for now. 12-year-old Amira has a brain tumour. I don't want to go back, Amira tells me, visibly terrified at the prospect of returning to Gaza. Our house is gone. My grandfather's house is gone. Everything is gone. All of our dreams are gone, she says. And Martha, with those weapons on their way to Israel, hopes are being raised once again for an end or pause to the fighting. An Israeli delegation will leave for Cairo today to restart talks with Hamas on a hostage deal and possible ceasefire. Martha.
Britt Clennett in Jerusalem, thank you. And I'm joined now by Senator Chris Van Hollen.
And I don't have a clip of Chris Van Hollen because his interview didn't really cover my topic, although it is worth watching. There's a link in the video description to the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos website, where if you create an account or put in your cable provider, you can probably watch it. And if you wait a week, I think you can watch it for free anyway, or I don't know all the restrictions. But anyway, you can watch what was actually an important development, an increasing break between Democrats and the Netanyahu government, and then Chris Van Hollen even criticizing the Biden administration, and that's because of this huge humanitarian crisis, the possible famine that is going to happen in Gaza imminently. And so I can't quibble with ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos and their host and reporter for putting that as the top story. And I will continue covering that as I'm sure it develops in the next several weeks. But I'm going to move on to the next news summary here, which is the NBC News Meet the Press news summary, where they actually covered more political topics. They covered the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore, of course, and then the big fundraiser, the Biden-Obama-Clinton fundraiser in New York, and Trump's continuing legal troubles, and the somewhat shorter news summary, about 2.5 minutes, that I'll talk about a little more after we watch it together over here.
Good Sunday morning and happy Easter. The 2024 campaign is intensifying with that historic show of force for President Biden from his Democratic predecessors, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, at Radio City Music Hall. The Biden campaign also announcing a new effort to reach out to Nikki Haley voters, using Donald Trump's own words against him.
She's gone haywire. There aren't that many never-Trumpers anymore.
How do you bring these Nikki Haley voters back into the tent?
I'm not sure we need too many.
Meanwhile, this week, the former president stepped up his attacks on the judge and his family in the New York hush money case after that judge imposed a partial gag order on Mr. Trump less than 3 weeks from the April 15th start date in that trial. And now Trump is asserting that none of the trials should, quote, take place during my campaign, falsely calling the criminal proceedings election interference. It is yet another reminder that we are covering this election against the backdrop of a deeply divided nation. But this week, there were also signs of how this country has the incredible capacity to come together. We saw that in Baltimore when the country rallied around that community after the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which claimed 6 lives.
We are Maryland tough, and we are Baltimore strong. So in the face of heartbreak, we come together. We embrace one another, and we come back stronger.
At an event centered on bipartisanship at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute, I had the chance to speak with 2 governors this week about what is required for leadership in a crisis like the one Baltimore is facing.
Whether it's a flood, whether it's a 9/11, whether it's a calamity like we saw today. You don't know when things are going to happen, but then to quickly convene with your team and develop a strategy and communicate to the public, that to me, I think, is leadership.
Bringing that transparency, being on the news, answering every question, not backing down from anything, and being super clear about what the mission is, what the metrics are, who's involved, and what we're going to do to get out of it. Whew, that brings everyone's temperature level down and allows things to flow so much better.
And joining me now is Congressman Jim Clyburn.
So yeah, that was the NBC News Meet the Press news summary. Oh, and this is Chong, the other kitten. You saw Cheech earlier, who's over on the floor there. Chong also came to join us and to look at all the news clips here. Now, I have two criticisms maybe of the NBC News Meet the Press news summary. First, I've noticed Meet the Press of all the programs does a lot of pre-recorded stuff on holidays. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna get rid of Chong here. Okay. Uh, when Chuck Todd was there, he seemed like he was taking a lot of Sundays off and pre-recording a lot of stuff, and a lot of the program on Easter, of course, since it's a holiday, I think ended up being pre-recorded on NBC News Meet the Press. And you saw they were also covering this Key Bridge collapse that you're going to see covered in a lot of the news summaries here. But one thing that the corporate news media didn't, they talk about how there's going to be all this legislative action to pay for rebuilding the bridge. What about the corporate liability here? Isn't there like a big shipping company, Maersk, that if there were like an accident on the road and somebody hit me and destroyed me, or totaled my car, they would be liable. I mean, maritime law is a little bit different, and I kind of looked into this a little bit. But why isn't the Maersk company taking more of the liability for this huge, their ship, for whatever reason, hit the pillar of the bridge and knocked it down? Shouldn't this big international corporation have some liability? And why do you think the corporate media doesn't want to talk about corporate liability? You tell me. But I haven't seen that covered in any of the news programs. I did a little research, and there might be some limits to their liability under maritime law and other law, but that was my that criticism applies to all the coverage, because nobody ever mentioned the corporate liability for like the big ship that hit the bridge there. But anyway, I'm going to go to the next news summary is Fox News Sunday, where they have their reporter Madeleine Rivera in Baltimore covering the Baltimore bridge collapse, and it's actually fairly straight news for Fox News and Fox News Sunday, and I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that news summary together over here.
Hello from Fox News in Washington. Happy Easter to the millions who are celebrating today. We begin with headlines from the early investigation into what led to a massive container ship in Baltimore Harbor slamming into the Francis Scott Key Bridge early Tuesday morning, leading to its collapse and the deaths of 6 people. Minutes before the ship was set to go under the bridge, the ship's alarms rang out. The lights went out, the engine stopped, and the rudder froze. One of the first places investigators are examining on board is the electrical generators that power nearly every system, and whether the fuel used to run them may have been contaminated. Back in August, 32 vessels from Texas to Singapore reported contaminated fuel, with some of them reporting loss of power and movement at sea. In a moment, our interview with Maryland Governor Wes Moore. But first, we turn to Madeleine Rivera near the wreckage of the bridge in Baltimore's harbor. Hello, Madeleine.
Good morning, Shannon. Demolition crews here are facing a dangerous and daunting task. At the moment, they're focusing on the north side of the bridge behind me. They are cutting up pieces of metal and lifting them off site. They want to open up a channel to allow some small vessels to pass through. This 24/7 operation requiring extensive engineering analysis to make sure the work is done as safely and as quickly as possible. Several cranes have been dispatched, including the Chesapeake 1000, capable of lifting 1,000 tons. State officials have not given an estimate as to how long it'll take to clear up the debris, recover the 4 remaining missing people, reopen the port, and remove the ship. But they understand the pressure, with 8,000 workers on the docks impacted and millions of dollars worth of goods incapable of transiting. President Biden is expected to visit Baltimore next week. Shannon.
Madeleine, thank you so much. Now to our interview with the governor, Democratic Governor Wes Moore.
and I don't have clips of that, although at least they didn't blame it on DEI. I saw a bunch of right-wing posts after the bridge collapse blaming DEI and calling I think Brandon Scott is the name of the mayor of Baltimore, calling him the DEI mayor, and he like responded that, oh, that just shows you that DEI is really like the way that conservatives and Republicans are now like substituting that for the N word or whatever. But that was part of the coverage that at least didn't make it into Fox News Sunday, although that was actually a question that was asked of both Wes Moore and I think Brandon Scott's the name of the mayor of Baltimore, and they were both on the programs, but since that's not my main topic, I didn't take clips of that. I have two more news summaries, both of which are under a minute. The first one is CNN State of the Union, Dana Bash talking about Easter in the middle of a divisive presidential election over in this clip.
Hello, I'm Dana Bash in Washington, where the State of our Union is wishing everyone a happy Easter. Today marks one of the most meaningful days in Christianity, already observed this morning by Pope Francis, as well as King Charles of England, who celebrated with less family than usual this year due to his cancer treatments. We hope many of you will be celebrating with your families. This year, Easter also comes in the middle of a divisive presidential election, and that is highlighting a shift in Americans' views on faith in politics. My next guest is a U.S. Senator, but also he is preaching today as the senior pastor at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Here with me now is Senator and Reverend Raphael Warnock.
And I will have a clip of Raphael Warnock, the preacher at the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Martin Luther King Jr. also used to be the minister. And his clip with Dana Bash is actually going to be the one newsmaker clip that most directly addresses the topic of my video. They specifically address the sale of the Bible and the use of it with the secular government documents of the United States, and how that connotes Christian nationalism. And that is actually the clip after next that I am looking forward to showing you. But first I have to show you the very brief news summary from Ed O'Keefe in the host chair of Face the Nation over on CBS, with the brief news summary, basically just talking about the key bridge collapse over here.
Good morning. Welcome to Face the Nation. Margaret is off, and happy Easter. We begin this morning with that terrible accident at Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. It remains in the Patapsco River, but crews have taken the first step of cutting into the twisted steel and stabilizing the wreckage so divers can find the 4 remaining workers, presumed dead. The Coast Guard says its priority now is to create a smaller channel so at least some ships can pass through and access the port, which remains closed. For the latest, we're joined by the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
And I also do not have a clip of Pete Buttigieg because it's not on my topic. I'm not really covering the key bridge collapse, although, as I told you, no one ever talked about the corporate liability and the big container ship owned by Maersk. Aren't they like the Captain Phillips company? Like, I'm the captain now, or whatever. But that was the last of the news summaries, and I think I've given my criticisms and a few compliments along the way to some of the news coverage there. But now I'm going to show you all my newsmaker clips and the way the different news programs actually address this important issue of the Republican Party embracing Christian nationalism and choosing as its champion this very flawed Christian Donald Trump. And the best news program to address that issue was CNN State of the Union in Dana Bash's interview with Reverend Raphael Warnock from Georgia. Like I said earlier, he's the minister at the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Martin Luther King Jr. was also the minister. And Dana Bash asks specifically about selling the Bible and Christian nationalism over in this clip.
Senator, the former president, the Republican candidate for president again, Donald Trump, is marking this Holy Week by posting a video. He did so encouraging people to buy a $60 Trump-endorsed Bible. Listen to what he said.
All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book. It's a lot of people's favorite book. I'm proud to endorse and encourage you to get this Bible. We must make America pray again.
The group selling that Bible says it paid to license Trump's name and image, which means he's making money off the sales. What do you make of that?
The Bible doesn't not need Donald Trump's endorsement, and Jesus, in the very last week of his life, chased the money changers out of the temple, those who would take sacred things and use them as cheap relics to be sold in the marketplace. The sad thing is that none of us are surprised by this. This is what we expect from the former president. If he's not selling us steaks, he's selling us a school whose degree is not worth the paper that it's written on. If he's not selling us a school, he's selling us sneakers, and now he's trying to sell the scriptures. At the end of the day, I think he's trying to sell the American people a bill of goods. And that worked in 2016, although he did not win the popular vote even in 2016. It did not work in 2020. And I don't think it's going to work in 2024.
I don't know if you've seen, but this Bible that Donald Trump is selling also includes the Declaration of Independence, the Pledge of Allegiance, the Constitution. Experts say that this is in line with a growing embrace on the right of Christian nationalism, which is the idea that the United States should be a Christian country. What do you think about that movement and Trump's apparent embrace of it?
Well, I'm a proud American. I love my country, and one of the tenets of my country that I love is the separation of church and state. And so I try to use my faith and the values derived therefrom to participate in a pluralistic democracy that embraces the great tenets, I think, that are lifted up by many faith traditions: love, justice, equity, compassion for the neighbor. Donald Trump is doing what he's always done. And this time it's a risky bet because the folks who buy those Bibles might actually open them up where it says things like, "Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness," where it warns about wolves dressed up in sheep's clothing. I think he ought to be careful. This is risky business for somebody like Donald Trump.
I don't know if you've heard your friend, Reverend William Barber, speak about this, but he says that Christian nationalism attempts to sanctify oppression and not liberation. He calls it a form of heresy. What do you think? I mean, is this a concept which seems to be growing something that you see as dangerous?
Well, again, I believe in the separation of church and state, and sadly, in our country in this moment, we're seeing religion being used again as one more proxy, as a tool in the culture wars. And very often it is hidden in the language and the clothing of religion. But Jesus said, "You'll judge a tree by the fruit it bears." I judge the depth of people's piety not based on their pronouncements, not based on them using the Bible as a symbol, but how do they treat the poor? How do they treat the most marginalized? Those are the people that Jesus centered, and that is the faith that I embrace every single day, and it's something that is sorely needed in our country in this moment in which those who have no vision are trafficking in division.
Republicans are attacking President Biden for recognizing today as Transgender Day of Visibility. I want to be very clear. This day, this Transgender Day of Visibility, is always on March 31st, has marked it every year since he's been in the White House.
And actually, Raphael Warnock there goes on to do a great defense of why it's very Christian to recognize Trans Day of Visibility on Easter, because Jesus was all about, love and acceptance and welcoming everyone. And that's something that the conservative right-wing people who are all upset about Trans Day of Visibility falling on Easter this year totally missed out on, which I'll talk about a little more but later. But I didn't show that part of the clip, but I do believe that Raphael Warnock did a good job of answering the questions from Dana Bash, but I also especially appreciate that Dana Bash brought up this whole issue of Christian nationalism and how it's a blight on our politics and something to be feared, and it's something that could really destroy our democracy. And it would, like I said, that was the best coverage on the big five corporate outlets of the issue. The next best coverage was over on CBS News's Face the Nation, where Ed O'Keefe asked a question about Trump selling the Bible to Republican Mike Turner, but didn't really bring up Christian nationalism, and also let him get away with this other war on Easter false claim that the Biden administration is preventing people from decorating their eggs with religious symbols, when the anti-discrimination rules that prevent partisan and religious symbols from being put on eggs in the White House annual egg roll or whatever is actually set by the National Egg Board. I didn't even know there was a National Egg Board, but apparently it's been going on for almost 50 years. Ed O'Keefe does not bring that up when Mike Turner tries to promote that misinformation over in this clip.
You mentioned it is Easter Sunday. You said you've been to church this morning. I got to ask, President Trump this past week unveiled what he calls the God Bless the USA Bible, which not only has the words of Scripture in it, but also the text of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and a few other things. Do you think it's appropriate for the former president, for the likely Republican nominee, to be selling such a product?
I haven't really seen that. I've heard some people talk about it. I think I'm more concerned about the White House restricting the ability of children to put religious symbols on Easter eggs for the Easter egg roll at the White House. I'm glad that CBS gives people the right to express their religious freedom. I can't imagine that we're certainly in a situation where the Biden White House is restricting, especially that of children, their ability to express their religious freedoms.
Okay, but you wouldn't buy a copy of this Trump Bible, would you?
I'm not writing a check for that.
Okay. Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio, thank you for spending.
So yeah, there you see it. And for those of you in the live comments, here is I put a link in the live comments to an article on the Hill that it wasn't the National Egg Board, the American Egg Board actually set up the guidelines for how they sponsor the White House egg roll for the last 45 years, and they set up the rules for how you can decorate their eggs, apparently. So even under the Trump administration, same rules that you saw Mike Turner try to, part of their war on Easter, it's the continuation of the war on Christmas. And so Ed O'Keefe was not up to date on that particular piece of disinformation. But the next Republican I wanted to show cross-examined is Representative Don Baker. He was over on NBC News's Meet the Press, where Kristen Welker didn't ask about the whole Bible issue or Christian nationalism, but about how Trump was posting this picture of Biden tied up in the back of a pickup truck with the Blue Lives Matter. I don't know why, but it is kind of a violent image, and he did it on Good Friday, which seems as much of an affront to Easter as what Biden recognizing the day of trans visibility on Easter. What about Trump posting a picture of the president tied up in the back of a pickup truck on Good Friday? Well, Don Bacon, he isn't endorsing that, but he's also not unendorsing Trump, I don't think, over in this clip.
Ask you this week, GOP nominee, presumptive nominee Donald Trump shared a video of an image of President Biden bound and restrained in the back of a pickup truck. The Biden campaign responded and said that Trump is, quote, regularly inciting political violence. The former president also attacked the daughter of the judge overseeing his hush money trial in New York. Given that you have endorsed Donald Trump, do you also endorse this threatening rhetoric, Congressman?
No, I don't support the rhetoric. But by the way, we see rhetoric on both sides. I'm the target of a lot of rhetoric on both sides. And I would want us to raise the bar of civility and how we treat the other side of the aisle, for sure. Now, I don't think he was inciting violence, but it is representative of the political dialogue we have today. And I see it firsthand. I get the same treatment from the left and the right now. Our country's better than this. We're the strongest country in the world, and we're the best country to live in. But we're not going to remain that way if we treat our opponents in this way. And so that's the first thing I want to raise. We got to be a lot better in how we dialogue with the opposition. But secondly, when it comes to this election, we don't need that. The issues are on our side. In our district, the number one issue, the number two issue, the number three issue is the border.
Yeah.
And we should be focusing on these issues and quality of life, and we will win.
Congressman, let me just follow up with you. You say he's not inciting political violence, but he has made threatening statements about the daughter of this judge. Is that appropriate? Is it appropriate to be going after judges and their family members?
I'll just say it this way. That's not how I talk. I'll lead by example on this. I think in my debates with my opponents, I focus on the issues, and that's how we win. And I think in Nebraska and the Midwest, we don't like the nastiness. We have a phrase here, Nebraska nice, and it's real. So we can win on the issues, and that's what we should find.
Donald Trump is making the case, as you know, that he deserves total immunity. The Supreme Court set to hear arguments in that case. Do you think that a president deserves total immunity, Congressman?
No. All Americans have to live by the law, and we're all accountable for our behavior. And so, especially after you leave the presidency, everybody, any individual can be held accountable through the legal system. And so, bottom line, every American is equally held responsible under the law.
Okay. Let me ask you finally, if I can, obviously there's been so much focus on the bridge collapse in Baltimore. We've been...
Oh, and then Kristen Welker gets to the bridge collapse, but that was all the cross-examination or questioning of Representative Don Bacon on the presumptive Republican nominee. I mean, Don Bacon is actually one of the more reasonable Republicans. He doesn't endorse the posting of Biden tied up in the back of a pickup truck. He doesn't think that presidents should have absolute immunity for their acts while in office. So that qualifies him as a reasonable Republican, which is kind of sad in its own way. But that was the best cross-examination of a Republican on Meet the Press, even though they kind of covered the problems of Trump in the news summary. I thought they could have done better, especially in terms of the Christian nationalism issue that didn't really get brought up. But at least they did better than the last two programs, ABC and Fox News, which didn't really mention Trump trying to promote this Bible that also includes secular government documents of the United States as part of this push towards Christian nationalism. In fact, that whole Bible promotion issue was only mentioned very briefly by Donna Brazile, the former campaign chair for Al Gore in the 2000 campaign, former chair of the Democratic National Committee. And she mentioned it briefly when talking about the money, the whether money's important in the 2024 election, answering a question from Martha Raddatz over here.
I'm just going to say, on the money, obviously that's so important in any campaign, but this is, again, a campaign like no other. Is the money, does that matter as much in a campaign like this, where Donald Trump is getting these small little campaign donations?
And he's hawking Bibles. He tried tennis shoes, didn't work. Vodka didn't sell. So now we got Bibles to sell. Look, yes, it matters, because at the end of the day, and the chairman knows this, the former chairman, I'm a former chairwoman, we know that this money will allow you to open up campaign offices, to hire people on the ground so they can go door knock and get people out to vote.
So yeah, that was you heard the promotion of the God Bless the USA Bible is kind of put there with Trump vodka, and the sneaker promotion I talked about a couple weeks ago, and but it's actually much more important if you think about the danger of Christian nationalism and how it's overtaking the Republican Party. And the final newsmaker clip I want to show you is the only place that Trump Bible promotion thing got mentioned on Fox News Sunday yesterday was very briefly by this person on the left. I've never heard of his name. I think his name is Philippe Reigns. You'll see him at the very end of this clip. And this is actually, they're talking about how Biden is now part of this big war on Easter and anti-Christian because he promoted this Trans Day of Visibility on March 31st, just like it's been every year since 2009. But this year it's on Easter for the second time, and that is apparently some big scandal. And that's the final news. This is the only mention of Trump selling the Bible, and that's where they end the discussion, and they all laugh, ha ha ha, ha. We have to end the discussion because somebody mentioned the fact that Trump is selling a Bible that includes secular government documents to promote Christian nationalism in the Republican Party, and that could destroy our democracy, ha 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 ha, is how they laugh at the end of the final newsmaker clip. I'll talk about with you a little more after we watch that together over here.
I want to make sure that we get to this other issue that has been bubbling out there the last 48 hours. The White House is recognizing today the president as Transgender Day of Visibility. It happens every March 31st, but it falls on Easter this year. That proclamation was issued on Good Friday, and there are a lot of people upset about that, including Caitlyn Jenner, who puts this on X. I'm absolutely disgusted that Joe Biden has declared the most holy of holy days, a self-proclaimed devout Catholic, as Transgender Day of Visibility. The only thing you should be declaring on this day is he is risen. Well, now we have a statement out this morning from the White House on Easter. The president saying, Jill and I send our warmest wishes to Christians around the world celebrating Easter Sunday. Easter reminds us of the power of hope and the promise of Christ's resurrection. Julia, it goes on from there. But
Yeah.
this has gotten a lot of attention.
It's gotten a lot of attention. I think we were talking about this before. The timing of this, with this falling on Easter, obviously a very religious holiday, definitely gives, I think, Christian conservatives, religious conservatives, definitely some material to work with going after the president on this. But at the same time, I think you're seeing the president walk this very fine line of wanting to obviously acknowledge Easter, but at the same time, there's a lot of people, particularly on the left, his Democratic base, who feel strongly about recognizing the transgender community, Transgender Day of Visibility. And if he were not to recognize this, that could lead to some backlash.
The fact that the President Biden is a Catholic church-going man, and the idea that he would desecrate Easter as the Trump campaign is charging, he has no control of it. It has always been March 31st. Now, could they have skipped the proclamation? Would that have been better politics? Probably. But I think to some extent, a lot of the coverage is leaving out the fact that he doesn't control the holiday.
Karine Jean-Pierre's Twitter feed this morning, nothing about Easter, but on Transgender Day of Visibility, the Biden-Harris administration honors the extraordinary courage and contributions of transgender Americans. Look, Joe Biden is a Catholic president. He's also the president who just sent his vice president to be the first vice president in history to visit an abortion clinic. You know, the Democrat position used to be that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. It was a necessary evil. Now that this is a Catholic president whose administration administration celebrates abortion. So it's in the context of these anti-Christian policies that why people are so angry
It's hard
about
to
this.
see how selling Bibles is celebrating Christian values. And that's not Joe Biden that I'm taking a shot at.
All right, panel. I think that's a good place to leave it. Right now.
And as I promised, they all laugh at the end about how one of the panel members mentioned something that they're not supposed to mention on Fox News, that Trump is like selling these Bibles for $60, the God Bless the USA Bibles that kind of represent this dangerous trend towards Christian nationalism in the Republican Party. And actually Howard Kurtz, who usually is like a lapdog for the right and the conservatives and is like really pushing the Fox News talking points on his show that's supposed to actually show media criticism. He's supposed to show bias in the media, but he never really talks about the bias on Fox News. And he almost mentioned it there, how the Trans Day of Awareness is always on March 31st, and that's not getting mentioned enough in the right-wing media that have been pouncing on this Biden attack on Christianity. But anyway, I think I've covered that. I covered the American Egg Board being responsible for the eggs being decorated in a non-discriminatory manner. But most importantly, I think I covered the way that the Republican Party is trying to erase the separation of church and state, like attacking Biden as a Catholic president for not having enough Catholic policy in his government. I mean, like the Supreme Court isn't Catholic enough already. And I mean, the only institution I think that's more Catholic than the Supreme Court is probably Fox News. If someday watch or look at clips of Fox News that occur on Ash Wednesday and watch how many of the people on Fox News have like these dark smudges on their foreheads. It's like 80% of the people on Fox News for some reason are Catholic. It's like as Catholic as the Supreme Court, and maybe that's why they're so outraged that their version of Christianity and their version of Catholicism isn't also promoted by the Catholic Joe Biden, who actually believes that his Catholic beliefs don't have to be imposed on other people through the government, and that's actually what the Constitution's all about. I mean, read the Constitution, just like Donald Trump should read the Bible before he starts selling it, and maybe apply some of the things in the Bible to his life, and which he doesn't, and doesn't get covered on Fox News. But now I'm almost going off on a rant, and I should be finishing this live stream because as I think I'm doing my live stream early on the first Monday of the month for the rest of this year, because I have a 6 p.m. meeting Pacific time on the first Monday of the month, so I have to start getting ready for that. But I appreciate all of you who showed up to watch my live stream live. Of course, I appreciate the recorded show viewers who comment when this gets published 12 hours after the live stream, and let me know what you think of the clips I picked out and the media criticism and political commentary I added. You got some live clips of both Cheech and Chong, my kittens, but I do have a recorded Cheech and Chong bonus clip for my loyal viewers, or the ones who like the pet clips at the end. And here are my kittens, Cheech and Chong, in the hallway earlier. There's this one cat toy that we gave to the kittens right when we got them. It's like a fish that had feathers on it, and it's been attacked so many times the feathers are all gone. But Cheech really likes it. Chong likes like the springs. I think I might have shown you a Chong spring clip in the past. But anyway, you can see this is a clip of Cheech going after his favorite cat toy, Chong, not really interested. In the final clip, the Cheech and Chong bonus clip that I try to end the program with every week, and here it is, and I'll talk about it, my program a little more after we watch that bonus Cheech and Chong clip together over here. And there you go. That's the show. I know that wasn't the greatest Cheech and Chong clip, the kittens, but I think it showed what I said it was going to show. I'm going to keep coming back every Monday all the way through January 2025. We got to go through at least January 6th to find out whether the person who won the election is actually the person who is certified as winning the election, and then through January 20th to see if that's this. Maybe it'll be 3 different people. Who knows? I have this weird theory that because Trump is doing better with like black and Latino males, that he might win a lot more votes in blue states and red states where it doesn't make a difference. And the greatest punchline for the 2024 election is if Trump won the popular vote, but Biden won the electoral college vote. I'm like, that is going to be the greatest evidence that we're all living in a simulation, because it's like a big punchline. It could happen, but I don't know why I brought that up at the very end of my live stream for just the people, my most loyal viewers who watch all the way to the end. You could think, wouldn't that be, I mean, that would be really funny, but maybe it'll happen. Who knows? But anyway, I will be back every Monday all the way through January 2020 when we find out how this whole episode of the American presidency ends. And until next Monday, or until I have some other reason to upload a video, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.